you guys were actually the first band I ever hit up for this
Really?
Oh wow,
podcast.
really?
Oh,
Oh
shit.
shit, man,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
crazy.
So this is a pretty nice full circle here.
Yeah.
Mortalis, amazing, amazing, amazing band. In terms of like the fourth wave of thrash metal, probably my favorite of all of them. So I'm really, really happy you
Thanks.
guys
Yeah.
Pretty high
Thank
are
praise.
Yeah, I
you.
know.
Holy shit.
on the pod. Yeah, yeah. And I got to listen to Earthworks early, and it was fucking awesome. It rips. I think this new sound is excellent. And I would love to dive into it. How much could I reveal about it? Like, I'm not going to read lyrics or anything. Um,
Oh, I mean, yeah,
You know?
I would say why not? Yeah, just go into
Whatever,
it.
whatever you're feeling. I mean, a lot of it we've played. The thing is that Iron Jungle's, been out for a while. We put out the music video for that. And so people have been listening to that for a while. And we've been playing Prophet, which is the next single that we're actually putting out in a recorded form. We've been playing that since what, like a Vakken battle?
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
a year and a half ago, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've been playing that for a little while. So people have heard that kind of stuff before for sure. They just haven't heard Prophet recorded. But we always had people coming up to us asking, hey, where can I listen to this? And it's like, nowhere for right now.
Other
Come to the
shows.
show.
Yeah, come to the shows. Yeah, that's how it was. So, but yeah.
so I haven't talked to you guys in like a year, I think. Has it
Mhm.
been a year? So how have you guys been?
Oh my God.
How has this year been to you?
It's been a while.
Yeah,
So much.
it's been great. Yeah, I think it's been since the last time that we had talked with you. I think we've kind of started to kind of interject ourselves into playing like nicer venues, I think. Because at that time, yeah, it was like we just barely got out of the COVID thing. There wasn't, a whole bunch going on and stuff. But I think starting to come out of that, we played like with like Napalm Death already. We played with Violence. We played with Brujeria. So a lot of like the hard-hitting bands and stuff back over at the Glass House in Pomona. So it's been like a really cool shift and change into what we were usually into at the time, which was like a lot of backyard shows and whatnot. So yeah,
Hell yeah. And
it's been a
a lot
wild
of
time.
skate parks too.
Yeah. We used to play in all the local spots, and yeah, now we're playing a bit, bigger venues, bigger bands with, bigger promoters. So, it's all moving up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's very, very, very exciting to see as a fan. And it feels like, From the Cryogenics was released around 3 years ago. So there's been quite a lot of evolving in the band, with, of course, Austin now, and it's so much has happened. Um, how do you compare these songs to the ones on the debut record?
Yeah, shit, dude. It's like almost night and day, to be totally honest with you. It's been wild. Yeah, I don't know if you want to kick that off, dude, but he's like already just so fucking like established.
I'll say this much as far as like from the starting point, as far as from the cryogenics was definitely like, I mean, I would argue for pretty much all of us, with the exception of Austin, when you really hear what he was capable of this whole time. Now that we've got Earthworks to reference, it's all there, and it was definitely elementary. I would think, I love it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to put down our own thing, but it's definitely such a step up from what we've come from. It's definitely. I mean, arguably, it's really set the bar from the cryogenics is something I'm proud of, or we're all proud of. It's the people love it, but I mean, just the immediate feedback we've been getting from this one, and just from our own ears, our own perspective of how far we've come. I mean, yeah, it's really night and day. It's something that we amongst ourselves say, holy shit, like, we say all the time. Austin has pushed us to new bounds. And it again, it's just all there in Earthworks. When you hear it, it's just like, holy shit, like, it's it's sometimes it's not quite the words you can use or find to explain it, but it's definitely a feeling that I'm like, holy shit, when I just hearing it.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
like even working with our producer and stuff has been cool too. Like when we hear it and it's like, oh shit, dude, like did we just fucking play that right now? Like I think that's always been like the reaction back and forth with it, where we sit down at the chair and then Austin's like in his little captain phase, like going, he's like Captain Kirk back over there, like he's like co-piloting with our producer and stuff, and they're kind of going into all the intricacies and all that, and like. I think that was also a really cool shift and change where it's like, for coming from me and Sergio and stuff, where we don't know jack shit about like, you know, all the technicalities that go into a lot of, you know, oh, okay,
Recording
I'll
and
speak for
mixing.
myself then, whatever. But but like a lot of the effects and stuff, and like I think a lot of our experience coming into understanding like those intricacies that go into like how to build a song and like how to add these small little reverb effects or things like that. We started to get a lot more meticulous on it, I think. So I think that's also been like a super crazy 180. So I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit more, because I know shit, dude,
Yeah,
so many things on that.
it's definitely different. You know, we like to jump around, you know, of course, because we like, you know, working with a bunch of different people, whether it's artists or, you know, a sound engineer, stuff like that. We like to jump around just because, yeah, you can stay with what you're familiar with, but that means you're not going to change or you're not going to evolve and you're not going to be pushed out of your comfort zone. And so we like to change, you know, like, you know, we liked our first engineer. He was a great guy. We loved working with him. We worked with him for a long time. We worked with him from before COVID into COVID and stuff like that. And he's great. And even then, you know, even though we liked him and everything, we're like, you know what, we got to change it up because we want to evolve. We want to experience different stuff. So we went and we found this other studio, and we've been working with Charlie over at Ultimate Studios, and it's a whole different experience. You know, he's got a whole different studio, a whole different way of doing things, and even we've learned a whole lot too. You know, it's like we've learned a ton of stuff, bought a lot of gear, and done stuff even at home, and so our whole writing process has changed, the recording process changed, and so being pushed into like uncomfortable territory is kind of what a lot of this writing was about, you know, because I think that a lot of that stuff on from the cryogenics is it's the stuff that, you know, you write when, you know, it feels thrash. It is like quintessentially it is thrash. It's not pushing any boundaries, but it's like you listen to it and you're like, yeah, that is exactly what I'm thinking when I think of the backyard thrash scene. And it totally works for what it is. And then once you kind of get into some other fields, some other genres and stuff, you kind of want to push the boundaries a little bit and just not play as comfortably. You know, it's like everybody wants to play in these certain scales or certain tunings, these certain sounds and stuff like that that we know are familiar. You know, we hear the Metallicas and the Megadeth and the Anthrax, and we hear those and we recognize them and say, oh, that sounded good, so I'm going to do that. And it can be hard to get out of that, but that's what a lot of this was getting out of our comfort zone and playing something that, you know, you can't play it fast when you first play it. It's really uncomfortable or it feels really awkward, but then you get into it and you understand it, especially, you know, with the guitars and vocals that Sergio's doing. I mean, well, we'll write something, play it, and he's like, how the hell am I going to sing over this? So
Yeah, for sure.
There's so much I could take out of everything you just said there in terms of the production, you know, the vocals on this, the lyrics, and just like also the general mix too is like really, really good. And like the production instantly was like, wow, this is definitely like fucking sounds great and a step up. And from the Cryogenics, I think is a great record. You can definitely hear the influences on all of your sleeves on that record.
yeah.
And this EP is like, I feel like your proper sound of like, this is what the band sounds like, you
Mhm.
know? Oh my God, it's there's so much I feel like I can go from here. In terms of like production and like the general mix and everything, how at what extent in terms of like how hands-on were all of you in terms of like the general sound?
So I mean, we all learned a lot from this, and we've all like we've all tried to do our homework and like learn and change our gear and stuff. So I've got a completely different rig. Sergio's got a completely different rig. And then when we're in the studio, we all try to be there, you know, for the mixing and for everything like that. And we all have our input. You know, if we just want, if somebody just wants to try something, we throw it in there, we try it out, we do the best we can to replicate whatever that sound is. And somebody has an idea, you know, we throw them in the vocal booth or something like that. You know, we make sure, you know, put your money where your mouth is. If you think something will sound good, then you got to work towards it. You know, we're not just going to say, oh, maybe this and have the engineer do it. So we all try to get into that and be all together. And we've all learned a lot and tried to put that knowledge to good use, especially when it comes to gear and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think there
How
was a oh, sorry, go ahead. Go
no
ahead.
no it's
No, the only thing I was gonna go back over into it is that I think there was a lot of hands-on in regards to the mixing, because I think when we were going back a lot of back and forths on that, Austin has taken like a super big leap into that. I know when we were going like back into a lot of the intricacies and stuff of like, oh, hey, you know what? Like we got to really change on how these guitar sounds. And there was like a period of time where we're like, dude, we don't know how we really want these guitars to fucking sound. Because we started to like, we got the first mix back over for like Iron Jungle and stuff. And that laid down like the template for how we wanted to do everything like moving forward from there. And so one of the big things is like we, you know, how Austin mentioned, we kind of want to push ourselves every single time. So there was a lot of a downtime in between like Iron Jungle, right? And while we were kind of recording a lot of this stuff. So there was a point where like Austin was kind of like, you know, I think with the guitar should be more like this. And that just started a whole spiral where we sent like 50 different Google Drive files and sample tests and stuff like that back over. So we could really dial in and be like, hey, you know what? Let's just find a couple of different bands that we really like the guitars for. So I think it was like, what was it? I'm already losing the German band right now.
Well, I mean, we're always looking at, you know, all the classic American bands, stuff like that. But I like stuff like, you know, Annihilator and stuff. But we're always just trying to look into ways to mix stuff. You know, we get Sergio's equipment, plug it into mine, and record it. You know, I bought a bunch of, you know, mics and interfaces and stuff like that at home, so I could be doing a bunch of different combinations of mics. And so it meant that even when we weren't at the studio, we'd be able to work on stuff. You know, I've got enough stuff that actually, like these were guitars here. We did the drums and we did the bass and the vocals all over at the studio, but we recorded the guitars over at my house and then reamped them over there because we were like, you know what? It saves us a bit of money, saves us the drive because we're, you know, about an hour out from that studio. And it made it easier on us to also make sure that everything was just perfectly right, you know, being in a comfortable like environment that we know. And so Sergio and I would get together and put our gear together to come up with as many sounds as we could and see what we liked. And then you know, we'd send it to our engineer and he would give us some pointers and some tips, and then he would mix stuff. And so there was a lot of back and forth, you know, between both my place and the studio, for the guitars especially.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Really, really awesome to hear. And it honestly shows with how good the EP sounds. Now I know we talked about it, and I know you guys made a whole kind of post of saying like the reason you are doing EPs kind of from now on forward is because you're trying to just get the music out there as soon as possible. And it takes a while to make a record, you know. But I'd love for you guys to kind of elaborate on that, on really why we're going to see more like EPs in the future going on.
Yeah, maybe I can touch on.
We touched on it before, but yeah.
Yeah, no worries. I think a lot of that is just kind of exactly like you mentioned, right? Where, you know, from a business perspective, and that's where maybe we're kind of dialing in a little bit on this one. But yeah, for like us, like we just mentioned, right? There's a big meticulous process that we like to go through. We really love being like super hands-on with whatever it is that we work on. So, you know, it's like caring for your baby and what. But the downside to that is that obviously it takes us however long since like, you know, what Iron Jungle came out, and then for us to go back into the studio again, go through that entire writing process and stuff. And so, you know, the big thing there is just that time sink that goes into it. If you want to make some, you know, I think there was like a saying or something like that where it's like if you want something cheap and good, you have to like, it's like a little triangle or something like that. You got to sacrifice one for the other and all that kind of stuff.
Good and quick.
Yeah, good and quick. Yeah,
all three.
You can't have all three together. So for us, you know, it's not like it's, you know, the craziest thing on the planet, but we do want to make sure that we're stretching our dollar as much as we can. So like Austin mentioned, right, you know, doing guitars over at his house, doing all that kind of stuff takes its own set of time. For us to go through that entire feedback loop to understand, hey, this is what's going on. Us trying to book shows and try to keep like the ball rolling with getting some extra money in and all that kind of stuff. The big thing there is just that like within that downtime, there's not too much for us to be able to kind of like promote. Like a lot of the FTC stuff has been around for like 6 years, right? So after that, it's like, you know, people are hungry for more music and whatnot. So we want to try to keep that momentum going on. For the most part. So I think that's kind of the main positioning for why we wanted to do EPs. And I think, you know, kind of getting more into it a little bit more after conversations with a few different folks, like on, you know, in PR folks and like managerial folks. Like, I think there was a time that I had submitted after the whole FTC stuff over to some guy who, to a record label. I'm not going to mention any names here, but he was a super cool dude. He's like, hey, I'm going to reject you from our record label and the booking tour agency, but I'm going to tell you why. So there was a lot of really good like information that we got back over for him. And I think the thing is that like a lot of these booking agencies and like, you know, big record labels, they want us, they don't want to do like a full commitment thing. Like if you have an album already, they're going to see that and they're going to be like, okay, cool. That's like a point in time kind of deal, right? Like, how do we stretch that out? Or how do we, you know, continuously make more content over time? So I think that's where a lot of that like push is also kind of allowed us to get into, is like, how do we become more flexible? How can we present ourselves a little bit more? It looks like there's still like, you know, some XYZ work that needs to be needed on our end and all that kind of jazz. But I think that's where a lot of that lies, is like, how do we become more flexible? How do we provide more music back over to the fans and keep interest over time? So it's a tough position to be in, but I think that also allows us to be a little bit more flexible with the music as well, right? Like if we hear something cool, we can go back over and be like, hey, you know, I heard this thing. Maybe we can bring that into the studio the next time that we go over. So it allows us to pick a little bit more elements too, from just, you know, not even a business perspective, but like an actual like music writing and like feedback perspective as well. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely does, and it makes a lot of sense. And I feel like it's all kind of this do-it-yourself landscape, especially with labels now, and they definitely know that. I know I've heard of labels now, like not signing bands unless they have like over 10,000 followers on Instagram and stuff. It's like quite ridiculous. What are your thoughts on like this new kind of landscape in terms of labels? It's not about even a demo anymore. It's about you have to build up your own thing. I know you guys even have a like a TikTok you've been doing for a long time. Um, what is it like navigating this current landscape in like starting up as a thrash metal band?
Holy shit.
It's pretty rough, just because, you know, well, like all music today, the thing is that it competes more with everything else than it was like back in the day. You know, like a while ago, you know, back, you know, thrash beginnings, 90s, stuff like that, you'd be fighting against other music and stuff like that. You know, you had this band versus this band, stuff like that. People didn't have their phones that they could really kind of get on and get access to other entertainment really quickly. But now, you know, the thing is that music competes with YouTubers, competes with TikTok influencers, competes with everything, because, you know, you've got, you know, like TikTok, an app where you can go from seeing something comedic to something infographic to something that is musical, something that is, you know, it's just all over the place. So there's more competition in the world. And I think, you know, that's why people are able to do so much DIY stuff. You know, the technology is advanced to the point where everybody's got a home studio and everybody's got a ring light, and they can make their own TikTok stuff that they want to make, and their own YouTube stuff, their own music. And that's great. You know, there's more people out there that are able to do stuff on their own, but it also means that there's more stuff to wade through to find the good stuff, you know? And so it can be really tough reaching out and like making sure that we're heard, because, you know, especially in LA, there's a sea of bands out there. Every single day there's a show or there's a gig going on. So really getting seen is the hardest part right now. And that's why, you know, they want you to have that 10,000 kind of threshold, is because they're saying, all right, these guys are getting seen, they're doing something right. But it's really tough just because of how saturated the market is, and that it's not just musicians and bands kind of against bands, it's bands against everybody. You know, it's everybody's competing for people's time on their phones. And especially when everything is such short form content, you know, where the videos are 10 seconds, 15 seconds and stuff, it's hard to want to listen to a whole album. You know, people don't put on a vinyl and listen to the whole thing anymore. They just listen to their favorite track and that's it. You know, that's why like the pop world is all about singles and tracks and stuff like that, as opposed to whole albums. So that also feeds into why we're doing the EP, is because shorter form content is going to be easier for people to digest, get into it, get out of it, understand it, and like it. And that even worked its way into the philosophy of some of our songs. I know, since you've listened to it, the one track that we've got coming out there is a really short one compared to all of our other stuff. It's like, you know, 3 minutes, sub 3 minutes. And we wanted to do that so that people could listen to it, enjoy it, and say, I could listen to that again right now and really enjoy that again, as opposed to having, you know, a 6, 7, 8 minute song and people say, man, I'm tired by that, I'm going to move on, you know? So
Yeah.
really competing in the social media world is the biggest thing for like up and coming thrash bands and any kind of local band.
Yeah, I think it's just like a little bullshit now, because it's like, you know, instead of just being a band and having music, you kind of have to be like almost like a little bit of an influencer at the same time, because it's
Yeah.
so impossible, you know, to just be like just even no matter how good the music is, to build up that many people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because it's a thing you listen to. It's really hard to, but you know, unfortunately, that is the world we live in now. And yeah, Prophet will be out this month. Very, very exciting. I assume that's the song
Mhm.
you were referencing. And I was like I said, I had the honor of listening to the EP. And yeah, you were talking about people's attention spans now, which that definitely helps. That's the whole reason why Violence just does EPs now.
Yeah.
And I feel like this EP is great because it kind of at the end of it, you want more, you know, and I feel like
Mhm.
that's what people should feel instead of, you know, like an album like 72 Seasons where it's an hour and, you know, over an hour and a half and it feels like a
Yeah.
marathon, you know what I mean?
Regular album's a double disc kind of thing. It's like, what is this? Because yeah, so many bands have done that. Dude, the most recent Megadeth album, the most recent Metallica album, I'm like, man, these are. I remember when they a full album was 45 minutes. It's like look at Painkiller. That's like 44, 45 minutes at the most, and that's a lot to listen to because it's heavy as hell. But now stuff is it's like an hour 15 minutes. It's crazy.
Yeah, and they only play two songs or whatever. Well, Metallica isn't, but
Yeah.
there's a
Oh
lot
yeah.
of bands that are guilty. You know, I think I saw Priest and they only played like two songs off their like it's like the album's like an hour and a half. You know, you're only playing
Yeah.
like 10 minutes of it.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like
Yeah.
the rest of this just became filler now. What the hell?
yeah, yeah. Well, I do want to say I do love the flow of this EP. That's something that definitely like stood out to me.
Mhm.
How did you go about choosing like the track list of this EP and how to like order and place everything?
Interesting.
Mm.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question because can we reveal that? Can we just say like, oh, we don't know? So the
Just
way
hit
that you
shuffle.
listened, it might have been the way that it was
Yeah,
intended.
the way that you've listened to that's the thing. It's funny you bring up the track list because whatever Lewis has sent you, I've not heard that. Or
Yeah, you know what? You should send that back to me. Maybe you just made the track list.
That's
right now. I was like,
yeah, you might have just made
"Fuck
our
boy,
track list,
dude.
but
Let's go."
yeah, it's definitely making a track list is tough. You really do have to think about what you want people to listen to first. I want people to get in and just like guns blazing is the thing for me. Like I want somebody to start listening to something and I want it to instantly get their attention and that holds their attention is the thing. So that's the most important thing for me. So that's how I want to order any kind of track list for any kind of album is just come out guns blazing, quick as you can, and leave them wanting more.
Yeah. And at least the way that I had sent it back over to you is maybe a little bit, it's probably the thing that we'll be talking about in another couple of weeks or something.
Yeah.
Because, we're doing the vinyls right now at the same time while we're kind of going through the release stuff right now. So it's one of those that like we're kind of getting back into it and being like, hey, you know what? How does that gonna go like flow into the next part back over for that? So we're still like in that entire process. But the way that I had sent it back over for you was kind of like how I am envisioning and like, that's gonna be the flow back over for that. There's like a lot of ups and downs and divots and all that kind of stuff, and I think that's kind of the thing that I wanted to capture back over for it. Kind of the way that we're releasing some of this, and I don't think we can reveal how exactly the other two songs because I don't think we set them like, hey, this is gonna be the ones. But like with starting off with Prophet, I think that was kind of like a natural choice across the board anyway, just because like that was just we want to get into it. That's the song people have been listening to for such a long time. And like the intro back over for it is just like trying to slam you back over into it. From there, there's like Iron Jungle is like a slower, more melodic kind of deal. And then, I mean, obviously we're going to be talking about it at some point anyway. But yeah, like Homefront and Split, they kind of have two separate dynamics over for it. Like Homefront it's even faster than Prophet. So like it just slams you into it and brings you into like whenever we play in practice, it's like our warm up song because it gets so like fucking chaotic all the time. It's great. I love it. So there's like that kind of up and divot and like punch back over for it, and then back over with like with Split. There's a little bit of like it has like a melodic energy at the top. It starts off like very not super energetic, but it brings you in. So I think there's
grand.
Yeah, it's a lot more grand. There you go. That's the word for it. So there's a lot more grandiose energy over for it before it gets back into like slamming you in. So there's a lot of dynamics and stuff, and I think that's going to be the fun part for us too, is trying to figure out like how that's exactly going to be flowing back over when people like listen to it on vinyl and stuff. So we're stoked for that for sure. So
I'm so excited for the vinyl, and Homefront's actually my favorite song on the EP. I love the riff. What really stood out to me too were the lyrics. I'd love to know, Sergio, what inspired these lyrics, and why do you feel it's important to express politics in your
Well,
music?
Actually,
Yeah.
the lyrics is
It's
actually
Austin.
That was all three.
Yeah, I mean, definitely
Yeah.
collaborative, but
It's collaborative for sure. Once the lyrics, I come up with like a first draft, and then us three we get together and we figure out what can be said, what can't be said, how we're gonna do stuff, and that one is definitely the wildest one, lyrically and even vocally. We really tried out some new ideas on it. So, and Sergio's really grown a lot with his vocals on this whole release. He's Sergio's taking vocal lessons, stuff like that. So I'll let you talk about that experience.
Yeah, I mean, quickly before touching on that, I mean, even like as so far as and it's like the politics, that's actually kind of interesting because I know that when we went about it, we specifically said we don't, because it'd be so easy since listeners would understand where we come from is like generally you would associate our song's theme to our given, what could be attributed to American culture and all that stuff, but some of it is pretty I would say comes off self-explanatory if we had any perspective to share, but we do try to keep ourselves out of like a singular perspective, just because we do want to try to make any song we make, even if it is political, just very relatable on a global scale versus just trying to think like, oh, this is just our perspective,
just America, just us.
Yeah, so I mean, definitely, and not just this song alone, but definitely at least Austin was kind of sharing with us and just kind of like getting us to explore themes, is to really explore, well, just that is a theme in which can be found across any literature, or even just real events. So like, again, with this song, it's not so much political on one side, it's just trying to capture what it's like, because Homefront is really just it's based around the draft. I'm not sure as like all countries do it, so to speak, but
I mean, there's a lot of countries that have conscription
it's
and mandatory service, even if it's not the draft. There's a lot of countries out there that have mandatory 2 years of service or stuff that you need to do. I've had friends that have had to go through that in other countries. So, yeah, those kinds of themes, we try to be relatable across the whole world, because, it's politics is something that politics and thrash go hand in hand. They're always together. You see them. Megadeth is the poster child for that. So you see it all the time. But being relatable across the whole world is important to us. That's why we've got the themes in Homefront, like the draft and conscription and stuff like that, and the treatment of veterans, and even the themes in Iron Jungle about the environmentalism stuff. That's relatable across the whole planet. And we really tried to aim for stuff that, no matter where you are, no matter who you are, no matter what your upbringing, you'd kind of relate to it. And so that influenced our lyric writing and our musical, all the instruments and everything like that. And so,
yeah, because even like as mentioned, I have taken vocal lessons, which has helped a lot, both from a performance standpoint and even just just a sort of new tool for our recording process. Because even just from when we started recording this EP, Prophet was actually the first we recorded, which now finishing it up, I mean, we literally, I mean, hell, even I was so proud, and our engineer was so proud, even just to say, holy shit, in this time span, because I was taking the lessons during the recording. So I mean, you can almost literally just pick out like the evolution of how textured my voice became on this EP alone. And because we, another thing that just we were messing around with a lot of gear, pedals and stuff as far as the instruments go. But then even with ours or mine, I would always feel like I lacked in was a little bit more body. So we messed around with a lot of microphones. I mean, Austin and I listened to a bunch of like different microphones that he had samples up for, and just to kind of for us to get a feel for like, all right, what kind of sound we want to capture. And at first we used one for Prophet, and I believe Iron Jungle as well. We used the same mic for those two. And then we used a totally different mic that was actually experimental for everyone. Even the whole new mic.
Wow.
Even the engineer was saying this is unlike, because for him he was like, hey, this is experimental mic. It's brand new in the market. Well, actually, I don't even think it was on the market.
I don't even think it was on the market when he got it.
Yeah, so it was just something experimental based on people he knew, his connections. So he said, want to try it? We said, all right. We didn't know what we were going to get out of it, but sure enough, what you're listening to now, or what the others will listen to now, I would argue is as raw as it is. And for my voice to have come out that clear, yet that full of body, I mean, it's kind of like, again, what we've taken from the lyrics and what it means, paired up with how you can capture that theme on a emotional scale and an instrument, which is my voice. I mean, it was It was really.
So we should say voices, right? Because I think that was another
Oh,
really
yes,
big
too.
thing
Like,
too. Yeah,
all
this
of
is the
us, yeah.
first time Austin is actually like singing, so it's like
Yeah, it's
a back and
Yeah.
forth. So like thematically, even for me, from like the drummer, it was like super cool to even see, right? There's a lot of different themes with how as Austin mentioned, right, like getting drafted and all that kind of stuff, and then what's the difference between once you make it back home here, right? How you get treated for like getting conscripted and all getting basically treated like trash afterwards. And so there's a lot of like that thematic kind of like dynamic between having Austin's voice and Sergio's voice kind of also bleeds into that a little bit more, right? Where there's a lot more like the visuals on that were like super good too, that we're writing on some of those lines and whatnot, like lose your leash. We're trying to go to try to write things that we're going to provide a really strong visual for how people are going through this horrible, god awful like experience, being like in a war, destroying other people's like lands, all that kind of stuff. And then on the same return back home, right, where you're like literally getting thrown into a gutter and treated like trash. So there's a lot of that dynamism that goes into that, and I think that also gets reflected in the way that we decided to kind of go through that with having two different vocalists, so to speak, right?
Where back and forth, yeah.
Where there's like that back and forth dynamic going into it. So I think thematically as well, that was another really big like thing for us too. Like based on kind of what we used to write, right, where we are now, there's a lot more vision that goes into it. So I think that's kind of the other cool dynamic that has been kind of presented within like the new EP and stuff. A lot of things become more concrete, and that's the other big push that Awesome, continuously puts us in, is like, how do we make this more concrete? How do we make this more like more stable, more understandable? How can we stop being vague and provide more visuals like within our writing process and stuff? So that's kind of pushed us along for a lot of the things that have been going on regarding kind of like the music, the theming, how we kind of present that. And it's been super cool, like just a really great experience. Like me and Sergio wrote like a majority of the other ones, but the pivot has shifted back over with Austin and Sergio kind of writing a lot of that majority and kind of our feedback process and stuff. So kind of seeing that dynamic change has been super great, even like internally. So it's been really wicked. It's been super cool.
That's really, really interesting. And honestly, just how powerful the vocals have gotten in the band currently really reflect like the lyrics. And again, it goes on that theme of how good everything sounds on this EP. Now, that's so interesting in terms of lyrics. Was that the case with all the songs on this EP?
All of the songs were pretty much like the creative process for all of them were usually I'd start with like a rough draft, or I'd have a theme or something like that. For Profit, we were thinking of, televangelists, people that take advantage of people who are looking for something to believe in, the people that are, oh, I need a plane, I need a yacht, I'm gonna trick these people into giving me their money because I'm a preacher, stuff like that. Start off with that kind of theme. And for that one specifically, I remember, that was pretty early on. And Sergio and I, we got together. We said, okay, this line works. This is cool. The symbolism here is cool. This line's a little too out there. And so, that's usually how it kind of goes, is I would start with like a first draft or the concept of something for all four of the tracks on here. And then I would bring it over, and then we would kind of mold it all together. And it would also, depending on the musicality of the song, all the guitar parts and the drum parts, we would change stuff, such as with Iron Jungle, we wanted it to be a relatable song. It's about environmentalism and the decay of the planet at the hands of people that are above us and stuff. And so we were like, okay, cool, because we wanted to be relatable, we want this to have like that chant in the middle that people can join in on. And it's simple. You catch it on the first chorus. On the second chorus, you can start singing it. And so we're trying to blend in the lyrics and the music to kind of be a little bit closer, because a lot of bands, even for us, the lyrics usually end up having like, they come last usually, but we're trying to learn to blend those in a little bit more and make it more present and everything. So that's kind of that was pretty much the process for all of the songs on here.
Very, very interesting. Now, Iron Jungle was the debut single of this, and it sounds like it was very almost like disconnected with the rest of the EP. Was that kind of the whole like after Iron Jungle, was it like, fuck it, let's just do an EP and record some more? Or was it like before Iron Jungle, was it like, okay, we're gonna make this song and eventually make some more to kind of join into this one in terms of a release? Was that the plan, or was it kind of just you know, one thing at a time.
But I think our experience has mainly been like a one thing at a time. I mean, I know definitely Austin came in, uh, considering this is right after, from the cryogenics. Austin definitely had a arsenal of like riffs and stuff that he basically presented to the table, and we all loved it, of course. I mean, so for the rest of the three of us, it was something like something we've never quite heard of, or what we were used to. Again, we're gonna keep talking about this. By the way, Austin really pushed the the ante for all of us. So I mean, it was just different. It was definitely unique and interesting. Again, something we were just simply not used to. So I mean, I know Austin definitely took the reins from this point, as far as the EP goes. But as far as a singular theme or how we approached every song, it was pretty much individual to itself. I mean, we definitely uh, there's with a lot of behind the scenes going on, and even like kind of touching a little quick on why that we're only doing mainly EPs, or we've decided to go with EPs for now, is because our experience has shown us that yeah, we take quite a bit of time to work on, well, even this EP alone for 4 songs compared to how long it took us for from the cryogenics. But it's something that we try to just all be hands on. We all submit something to a folder that we can all access at any given point. Just basically, it's just day in and day out. We're constantly just going back at it and thinking to ourselves, with a song like this, when Austin basically has laid down the foundation, is like, what is it calling for? So it's not something we already think on the big picture of what the EP wants to represent as a whole and how each song will back up this singular theme. It's more of just oh, I'm getting kind of these vibes off of this riff that we can explore this topic, or maybe we could talk about this as a instead of like, what, let's do away with politics as a whole, even though some song might be political, but we just want to, like, we don't want to be stuck in that bubble either. We want to just explore all aspects of life and everything. But as far as, again, the creative process goes, is we're not trying to be so stuck in one theme or topic. We attack every song one at a time for as long as it takes, because we know it takes a long time. And even when it is complete, we had other songs, more or less, for lack of better words, complete songs, but we've actually now just simply scrapped it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of that's saying we've been a lot more critical of ourselves with these. Like that's why it's taken longer to do some songs and stuff, is because we've come in and said, is this as good as it can be? Was this the first thing I came up with? Did I give it more chances and stuff? So we've always, we've gone up and down on some of these songs saying, damn, this is the best thing ever. Mm-hmm. Oh God, it's terrible. Who's gonna listen to this?
Oh no, dude.
Oh wait, it's great. Oh wait, I hate it. Like, we've gone up and down. So we've really tried to be very critical of all this stuff, and that's like what Sergio was saying, is that we have other tracks that we were planning for this. We had a whole other track that we did drums and bass and guitars for and stuff. We didn't end up doing the vocals on it, and we said, you know what, that's not the time for this one right now. Let's push it till a bit later, because we think that maybe we can do something better with it. And we've had, there's probably 2 or 3 tracks that are like that are probably going to be on the next EP or something like that are still going to be leftovers maybe from this, but they're going to be evolved in some sort of a way.
And they are still different, I think, is like the other end of it too, is that when we kind of start writing and putting in these pieces together, it's not like exactly like Sergio mentioned, right? Where it's like this grand scheme idea that we had immediately, and it's like, hey, this song is going to go back over for this one and flow directly. We're kind of piecing it as we go, so to speak. So there's like a lot of downtime, like when we're going through something or whatever, and going through that critical process really is just like, wow, I think I heard that back over from this place. And you know what? There was a lot of times where there was like, man, I heard Testament wrote this in like this album or whatever. And so we go back over and we look at it and it's like, oh shit, they actually did.
Yeah.
So we like, that's probably something
that always happens.
Yeah, that always happens. So for us, that's the other end of it too, is that maybe it might come off of the impression where it's like, oh, we try to make it, what is it called? Like, this grand scheme idea or what have you. But at the end of the day too, it's also kind of us just trying to scrap pieces together and put them in within that moment. And trying to be different in that other kind of aspect, where we start looking at it from a critical point of view and see that it actually was already a piece that was written in someone else's song. And so we have to go back over to the drawing board and be like, well, how do we do that different? Or like, how is that going to be bleeding in over to this? So there's a lot of different components that go into it. So if it sounds super different, you know, there might be a reason for that because we kind of wanted it to sound different. Maybe that was a piece that was written back over from Testament. It's like, well, how do we do that different now? So that's another end of it too, right? Where it's like we want to make sure that whenever we do present that, you know, new song or what have you, it's, you know, it's something that we really put in a lot of love for and a lot of like effort back over into it and put a critical eye over for it. But yeah, that's just kind of like how our workflow is. It's a very erratic, but it's also very weirdly structured. So there's a lot of different components that go into our stuff for sure.
Yeah, that's really cool to hear, man. I'm really, really excited to get my hands on the physical release of this EP. Now I'd love for you guys to go into, is this going to be like a limited release? Are there going to be variants? Are you going to maybe put out the debut record on vinyl? Because I assumed it was just CD before, right?
Yeah.
Like this is your first ever vinyl release, so I'd love to know like maybe how did you even get these pressed, who you teamed up with? So if you guys could elaborate on that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
so we've been looking, the thing is that with the first album, we wanted to do vinyl, but the thing is that I think, it was during this time, it was like COVID stuff, so it was a little bit tough. There weren't, the in-person shows to really make sales and stuff. So it was like we kind of knew going into it that this might be a little bit hard to recoup, the costs of it. And we'd also had experience, from talking to other bands that, man, sometimes it takes 6 or 8 months even to get albums on vinyl. My brother's band had a lot of trouble with that. I remember they were part of the really big group of people that got pushed back because Adele said, "Oh, I need 1 million copies." And so essentially what happened was we wanted to do it for the first one, but we kind of decided that it wasn't the right time. And then on this one, we wanted to look into some sort of other type of release, whether it be cassettes or vinyls or something. And we just kind of settled on vinyls because, of course, it had such a big resurgence. So for this first thing, we're looking at doing a pretty like regular release. We're doing just this first edition is just going to be the plain kind of black. It's going to have, we're going to make it like a custom like center sticker. Of course, you've seen the art for the front of it. We're going to have, we have an idea that we want to do for the back. We actually just did a photo shoot that's going to be, we're probably going to be using some of the stuff from that for the back of it. So we're still going to be designing that. And then this is kind of a little bit of a test gauge to see because we're looking at maybe expanding our playing area and kind of either going on small tours here or just going up on like longer trips and stuff and seeing how well these vinyls do and stuff and what the demand is. And then from there, of course, everybody, I'm sure everybody's told you, it's easier to get repressings later because they don't have to make a whole nother matrix. They're remaking something they've already made. So at that point, if there's a demand for it, we'd love, we've been looking at it now, making a bunch of different variants, different colors, different combinations of stuff. But it's really hard, to jump in on that initially, having never sold vinyls before. So we're gonna go for a pretty normal run this first time. These first pressing, they might be the only ones that we're doing. We're not totally certain yet. We kind of got to see what the response is from everybody. I'm sure we're gonna sell a bunch of them. We've sold hundreds of CDs across to Japan and across in Europe and stuff like that. So there might be somebody in Japan that says, "Hey, I want 100 of these. Send them over," and we're gonna be like, "Oh, all right, great," and then we're gonna start making special variants all over the place if people love it, So we're really looking for that, what the audience wants.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of inspiration for the key processes for wanting to do like because there's people who were asking like from France back in the day when we were doing like the FTC stuff, and they're like, I don't care how long it takes, just let us know when the vinyl's out. And it's like, sorry guys, it's gonna be 3 years or whatever. So there's already been like a pool of demand. But I think the other side of that too, when we were talking about it, was like, how do we just make a more unique product as well? Like, because not a lot of bands actually are able to make vinyl nowadays or whatever. At least even within our local area and whatnot, because it is like super expensive to do, right? So the other thing of that is like we want to make something that's like collectible, something that we, a fan or whatever is gonna have like put up on their room, and so a lot of the design went into that as well. Like I think even initially we weren't even gonna have like the logo name on that. Noah Mayhoff, who's like our artist for this round and for Iron Jungle, ridiculously great.
He's
and so
incredibly talented.
He's really, really talented. And so I think that was the cool part about it too, is that we want like, every component is like works with the music, right? So we wanted to have something that's going to be presentable back over for a fan that, this is so good. Like I want to put it like as a poster or whatever. So Like for myself, I'm a big like, well, I don't want to say I'm a big vinyl guy or whatever, but you know, like I have my vinyls and stuff, and so I buy copies of like that same vinyl because I like to have one for like my actual wall and then the other one for me to play. So it's like, you know, there's a lot of big collector perspective on that, and so for me, like that's kind of the other cool thing is, you know, being able to present something that's like a collectible back over for like a fan and whatnot. And so I think that was another big like initiation for why we wanted to do like vinyl this time around and whatnot. And just the other combination of just like, man, that art is just so killer. It's so great. We're like super thankful for like Noah for doing that. Like, oh my God, it's so good. It's so good.
The art is so amazing. And Noah's so good. Most notably did art for Ghost.
Yeah.
Really, really awesome stuff. I've been following for him for a while. So when the Iron Jungle art got announced, I was like, holy shit, that's awesome. It was really,
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah.
How is it like working with Noah, and how hands-on were you guys with what the art was going to look like? Or was it just hand the keys to him, do whatever you want?
There's a combination for that. I you know, in the same way that we like to treat our baby when we were talking about like the music and stuff, there was a lot of already kind of like us. We do love handing the keys back over to the artists and let them do their thing. But what we like to do is kind of like how Austin mentioned, right? We lay down the skeleton. We kind of have like a vision of what we think of. Just based on like previous experience, I think with other folks that we've worked with very badly. Yeah, when we first, you know, maybe to do a little bit of a sidestep, it might be entertaining for a few folks, but yeah, we haven't had the best time with working with artists when we were first coming out with like the first FTC album. So there was a lot of times where there was like a time where we were like even in my living room or whatever, and like the artist like slammed the door and was like, "I can't believe that you're providing this much feedback over for it." It was crazy. It was wild. So there was that, and then the first time that we had to do drafts, like this person thought that we were making like thousands of dollars, and they're like, "Yeah, can I get like 1,000 for this like art piece?" And you know, 100%. Like at the time, it was like we're a backyard band, dude.
Yeah.
Like we're making scraps out here, and this guy's like, "Yeah, it's gonna be like $1,000 bucks," and that was like after like one draft, and we're like,
No, hold up a sec. Yeah. It's like, ooh.
yeah, it's like I don't know if that's gonna work out over here. So
$1,000 for a sketch. That's not the way we want to do it.
yeah, so that was super wild. So for us, you know, we haven't had the best track record, but kind of even with like the first artists that we worked over for like FTC and stuff, that whole process was like, hey, we have a vision. We set up like the skeleton and stuff, and we found out that that really helps kind of get the process along a lot faster too. So there was like, you know, we could definitely give the keys back over to somebody, but at the same time too, we also, in that same way that we're like, hey, you know, this person already did something like that. Like, how do we become different? So we take our inspirations from various different places and then try to like formulate that something a little bit more unique on that end. So when we kind of came back over for this, and then the concept that Austin was bringing back over, which is like, you know, malicious works or malicious, what was it?
Menacing
Menacing
like architecture.
menacing
stuff,
architecture.
yeah.
There we go. So there was that entire concept in and of itself, and working with Noah back and forth with a lot of those notes. I'll hand it over to Austin here, but he's been like wonderful to work with. We send back things like emails all the time on like, hey, this is the feedback notes over for this kind of stuff. This is the skeleton back over for it. So we get hands-on in the very beginning, but afterwards we like to let the artists do their thing. We love when they like put in their own influences and all that kind of stuff. So we just like to provide that first initial like, you know, draft or two, and it's like, all right, that's cool. Then after that, go as hands-on, go as hog wild as you want.
Yeah.
Not disappointed.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so yeah, we usually start, you know, we've got a few reference images, stuff like that. We have concepts, you know, when we did specifically like when we did Iron Jungle, I remember, you know, thinking, I was like, okay, cool, where can I, you know, represent the duality between nature and the Iron Jungle, which is supposed to be like, you know, the decaying city, the scaffolding, all that kind of stuff. And okay, I thought of the hourglass idea. I'm like, okay, how can I do this? And we all talked it over and thought about a bunch of different stuff, and then we came up with the idea. And so, you know, we come up with reference images, and we try to draw as poorly as all of us can because we're all terrible artists. And we give it to Noah, and you know, Noah's always told me that he prefers that, you know, people kind of give him a framework or something, because he's had artists just tell him just like, hey, just go and just make something, and you know, he kind of prefers to have a direction to move in, because it, you know, it reins him in a bit, and then it allows him to put his touch where he wants it, not just have to put it everywhere, you know. So like on Iron Jungle, that art there of the hourglass and everything, we didn't intend to have anything outside the hourglass. But then he added that kind of orange, that sun in the background, and all of that. And we saw that and we were like, oh, that's dope. Like, it looks incredible. And so we loved that. And then it was the same thing with this. You know, I've been reading a few things about menace. That's what kind of where we got some of the title, you know, the Earthworks, and it's menacing architecture. It's for it kind of relates almost a little bit to Iron Jungle, where with like the long-term like nuclear waste warnings. It's like, how can we convey the idea that something is buried here and it's dangerous to people that are 10,000 or 20,000 years in the future who might not speak English, Russian, Chinese, French, any of these languages? How do we convey the idea that this is dangerous, you know? And so part of that idea is the menacing architecture that you see on the cover there, all of the spikes and all of the blocks. And another idea that they had there was it was a rejected idea because it was pretty goofy, but it was a atomic priesthood kind of thing. And it was, they were talking about how Christianity is one of the longest lasting messages throughout all of history. And that's because it's a religion and it's been passed down through word of mouth and through writings. So they considered doing the same thing about, you know, where all of this waste is buried and how to avoid it and how they should. And so that kind of idea popped into my head. And then I talked over with these guys and we made some little changes, stuff like that. And then we gave it over to Noah and we got, you know, a few sketches here or there and we liked it all. And then he started throwing in his touches, such as, you know, the very intimidating prophet guy on the front there. He wasn't originally going to be there. He was actually kind of down at the bottom. He was smaller. He wasn't as major of a part. And then Noah said he kind of wanted something to tie in like the bottom of the art and the front of the art. And he put that on there and we loved that.
Oh yeah,
And
like
so
that color contrast is so good.
exactly. We just that's the thing that we give Noah a framework which he loves. He appreciates that. He's told me a bunch of times that he loves that. And then he brings us back a bunch of like little tiny different versions that are, you know, oh, I tried this, I tried this. And his process is really impressive because, you know, he starts with real art. You know, he's painting it and he's got like actual materials and everything, and then he scans it in and then he touches it up digitally and stuff. So he does a lot of really, really impressive work. And his flow and we've grooved and meshed really well. He's very, very fun to work with.
Yeah, just such a good artist. And when he did kind of the time lapse of like coloring in the art, so cool. And it's like just to see it as a piece is like, damn, what a cool fucking
he's very impressive.
Really impressive, man. Now you know, I just have to ask because everything I've seen of you guys live is just absolutely amazing. The Metallica covers, so good. For Whom the Bell Tolls, probably like one of the best Metallica covers I've ever heard. I feel like your sound translates so well for playing like Metallica and stuff. In terms of just playing live in general, have you guys thought about any time in the future of putting out like a live album or just a general live recording that's like soundboard audio and like mixed?
That would be
You know,
so much fun.
I did not like crazy in depth, but I know I have thought about it, and I even spoke about it with our engineers, just as far as I mean, because hell, I was told by my cousin, like when we were, you know, some time ago now, but the idea was he's like, hey man, like, you know, he came out to see us. It's one of the, like, among the first few times he had seen us, and he dug our sound from the get go. I mean, he loves metal and all that stuff. And my cousin literally told me, he's like, hey, I don't, no offense or anything, but like I love the album, but you guys sound way better live. You know, like just like, you know. So I mean, it was a little bittersweet moment because, you know, just with that process alone of recording that first album was even like, and you know, to be so proud of it, and then you're kind of being told like, hey, it's great, but you know, you clearly show potential for more. But like, but you know, it's bittersweet, and then but mostly sweet, I would say, just because I mean, and this is where I spoke with our engineer about, is that no matter how much we go back and meticulously work this thing to death just to get that sound, for whatever reason, just obviously any performer I would imagine can agree, is that when you play it live, there's just there's a feel to it, and it's just that entire ambiance, and you just kind of get in this flow to where you just crank out that sound, you know, whatever, whether it's from your instrument or from my voice, or just a collaborative, you know, thing on stage where you just kind of capture this like holy shit moment that you weren't gonna get by being so like meticulously in a studio or something. You can't capture a live performance in a studio, to say the least. So Yeah, I mean, it's something I would love to explore. We could look more into how we would go about capturing that, let alone choosing or setting up this entire event to capture that. Because yeah, at the end of the day, live performance when it's really really good. I mean, obviously the one that stands out to me is the 1989 Seattle Metallica, and I've always wondered like this is their natural state, but how do you capture natural state when you're going into it knowing we're going to record this, it's got to be the best performance. I mean, like, it's really hard to go into it with a plan and capture a raw sound. It's, I mean, I can't imagine what that's like, but that's something I would think we'd be interested in exploring.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, that'd be so. As a fan from Boston, I feel kind of left out, you know.
Oh, dude, you got the band there, man. You gotta play Boston all the time. Do you
Oh
like run into
God.
that stereotype? Just like have
Yeah.
Boston in the background. Yeah, dude.
I've listened to too much of that, and Dirty Water. It is nice.
Hell
There's a
yeah.
good Worcester scene, but that's about it. I will be in LA all of July, which will be nice.
Really?
I'll be able to
Okay.
check out some of the scene there.
Oh, dude, we
Um,
should hang out too. What the? I'm like, bro, we
Yeah.
can get you the first beer out here. I'm down with that.
how
Very
close are
rare
you
pair.
guys?
We're like only like 20 minutes away from you.
Oh,
Yeah,
no
we're-
shit.
Yeah.
I'll be close to Sunset Boulevard.
Oh,
Oh, yeah,
dude,
right.
I know all the
Basically
there.
30 minutes from us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Your kidneys will die, is what I'm saying. So I'm like, come on, dude.
Yeah. I'll be bringing my podcast gear too. So shit, you know, maybe.
Nice. That'd be sick. Yeah,
Yeah,
let's
yeah,
hook it
yeah.
up.
But yeah, man, I just think like that'd be so awesome because like I see you guys live, like on YouTube live, where it's just some fucking kid's phone,
Yeah.
and it just rips. It's like, damn, like because I enjoy the studio stuff, but it's like you guys live, so good. I know the last time we talked, uh, I asked what you guys like learned as a band since starting, but I'd love to know, in terms of when you first decided to pursue Iron Jungle as EP, what is the biggest lesson you guys have learned as a band putting together this EP?
Oh man, there's way too many to talk about, but I don't know if you want to go on a line here or whatever.
Well, I mean, I would probably just quickly touch on the idea again because of the whole EP and what we said earlier is that what we learned is we can't, we really have to just be critical of ourselves. I mean, more especially when we're talking about like because don't get me wrong, is like we have other songs that just simply didn't make it on this. I mean, from the very get go, of course, we want to make another album, but just because of the rate we were going at and just all the behind the scenes things as far as the business aspects of what it's going to take to make things line up if we wanted to go about releasing music just on streaming platforms and whatnot, and how we were maybe going to put shows together to kind of cater to that. I mean, just any projects we can get ourselves involved with, even just playing the bigger shows alone, was going to take a lot of our energy and just kind of mindset to say, hey, this is the moment where we start treating ourselves like really professional. With that was going into the studio, or at least the creative process. So again, with all those songs we had, I think if I remember correctly, Austin, we had like
We had about
songs,
we probably had double what's on this EP ready to like go in there and write. And then we looked at
Wow.
the time that it would take and the effort and the money and we kind of lined it up and we're like, you know what? With the current climate of how music is and stuff like that, us kind of looking towards doing EPs and stuff, we were like, you know what? Let's just shorten this, and that gives us time to make these other tracks better for the next run around, you know. And so we had stuff where we were, looking into putting out something longer, and we realized that everything kind of lines up to if you can give it more time and make it better and be more critical of yourself, you'll end up with something better. Because it kind of ties into what I was talking about earlier with the saturation of LA and stuff, and the fact that everybody also has a home recording studio all around the world now. Everybody's able to put out something, which means that there's a lot of stuff out there that, no offense to anybody, everybody puts out something bad. We write probably 12 riffs before we get a good one. I've written some junk, trust me. It happens. And so knowing what to put out and what not to put out, and thinking, how can I be critical of myself and make sure that what I put out is going to catch someone's ear and they're not going to write me off immediately, that's a big thing that we've learned, because there have been tracks, all of these tracks have probably had 10 different incarnations of we're going to play this more. We're going to play this riff. We're going to play this. Let's get rid of this. Let's change the key. Let's change the vocals. Let's do this. And it's just being critical and saying, is this the best it can be? Or is this what I want it to be, you know? Because it's really easy to write something and you get in your head of thinking, like, oh, that's great. And then you put it out and it goes nowhere. And we want to make sure that this stuff goes somewhere, you know? And so being critical of yourself is one of the most important things. And I'd say hand in hand is being uncomfortable with that, not going with the very first thing you write. Because oftentimes the first thing you write is what you're most familiar with. And if you're familiar with it, it means you've done it before. So be uncomfortable, be awkward, play it slow because you can't play it fast, because eventually you'll start playing it fast and it'll sound better. But just be different and be uncomfortable. Get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah. As someone, I do, comedy. I go around, and I don't have to bring any gear. It's just me. I just show up, and it's almost impossible to balance it with my day-to-day life. Being in a band, how do you guys figure out that balance between being in a thrash metal band and having a job and just having your normal life?
Well, Luis does that the most of us.
Yeah,
yeah. No, I think maybe. And first of all, again, I know I've like slightly interrupted you there, but I'm like, dude, that Cole's Cash fucking joke, that was so good. Like, I still have that saved on my reels. It's like great, so good.
A lot of white people in New Hampshire.
Yeah, they know what's up.
Yeah, hell yeah,
brewery shows.
That shit was wicked. But I think from there, maybe I can kind of speak for everyone, at least like as an overview. But I think if you're really dedicated and you really just love doing what you want to do, you're gonna make the time for it no matter what. Like, I do maybe to talk a little bit about what I do outside. But yeah, I have like a full-time 10-hour to like 11-hour a day kind of job Monday through Friday. So I work like office stuff. Outside of that, I run like an entire nonprofit. I'm like president over for that. So I set up scholarships for kids in like my local area and whatnot. And then from there, I go back over with these weenies and then we start playing some really good thrash metal. So it's like, I think whatever it is that you have a passion for, you're always going to make the time for it. It's just going to be a matter of just really organizing. Because I think that was also a lot of the downfall that we saw from like a lot of the other bands that we saw as well. Because I think I'm not sure if you mentioned it at the last interview, but there was like we always talk about it every chance that we kind of get, but it was really melancholy for us to kind of see. We had caught up with like a band that we hadn't seen for years. This was right after COVID. And then we went up to them and we're just kind of like shooting the shit after like, almost 4 or 5 years that we hadn't seen each other. And then he brings out like this guitar case and stuff. And it had all the stickers from like when we first started as a band, like so many different bands that we like still recognize that we even like really, really loved. And they're just completely disappeared. They're just gone off the face of the planet. And it was like really one of the saddest things that like I think we had seen. We were talking about that afterwards, and it's like, damn, dude, we fucking love this band. We really like those guys. And it was just, we called it like the graveyard case because it was just really fucking sad. But I think that was the other end of it too, is that when, there was some other folks that we had talked to like over the course of our career and whatnot, I guess if you want to call it that when we started to talk with them, it's like, oh, hey, you guys have like a really different dynamic that we don't get to see with a lot of other bands. And what that translated to is like, on stage for us, we've been playing for like almost 7 years together. And so that really translates to like, even bringing it back to some of what Sergio was talking about, like that really translates when we play on something like on stage live and stuff. Like when he does some little doodle or whatever, I like go in and accent on it. Or like when Austin comes over and laughs at me for like messing up this horrible fill or playing the worst thing on Butterflies, like we get to laugh it off and all that kind of stuff. But that same kind of energy also translates back to what we do off the stage. Like all of our business stuff is like super organized. We try to make sure that we hit, XYZ deadline, do all this other kind of stuff, and try to work within the confines that we're able to, right? Because the other end of it too is that, we don't want to lose quality of life when we do like our band stuff or whatever, right? There's like that whole other different component where it's like, yeah, we could definitely be doing music and be, starving musicians and live into that stereotype, but why when we can do it smarter? When there's other opportunities for us to work harder and be more critical of ourselves, not just with like being able to throw a poop ton of money at something, but at the same time not also go to the other extreme, and that is like literally only eat hamburgers 3 times a day. We've seen other bands that do that right now, but if they're in the same position that we are, then what's kind of the point then, right? So again, no discredit to like any of the other bands that are in that kind of situation. Sometimes it's just things that they have to go through and stuff, but for us it's like that balance that we have to kind of like go through and whatnot. But I think at the end of the day, regardless of whatever your situation is, whether it's like, oh damn dude, I'm starving and eating McDonald's out here or whatever, or like I have to work like 5 in the morning the next day like this guy does or what have you, we'll make the time for it. And I think that's like the biggest thing for us, is that we'll throw that in, that extra hour in at the end of the day, or we'll like do this during our lunch break or whatever. So there's always that kind of balance. Like I think the last time that I was like doing a promo and outreach, it was while I was at work in front of my desk. Like I snuck away and then I started making phone calls while like during my job, and I was like, oh fuck it, dude, nobody's.
Now you get fired.
Yeah, now you get fired.
Tomorrow the coming in. Oh, I saw this podcast.
Dude, I saw his podcast. He's over. It's done for him.
Yeah.
But it's like the small little things, right? Where it's like, you sneak off while something's happening, and then you just like, oh hell yeah, dude.
Yeah, get some work done. Yeah,
get some work done. So I think that's the other end of it too, where it's like if you got it, you'll make the sacrifices for it, and I think that's like the other big thing as well, right? It's like making the time for it, juggling all these different passions that you have, and it shows. You'll make the time for it for sure if you really want it.
Yeah. It helps us a lot is that we do, we're all interactive with everything that we do. We always try to help each other out if, somebody else needs help with something, but we keep our stuff, we all know what we're best at. And so we all try to take on those jobs individually. It's like Vince, our bassist Vince isn't here right now. Obviously we're not a 3-piece, we're a 4-piece. But Vince can't be here right now. He's off graduating. What a nerd.
Yeah, dude. He's graduating? That's crazy.
So he's graduating right now. But, he does like 99% of our social media because he's good at that. He knows what to do. He knows how to do it. He's the one that pushed us to do TikTok because, God, I'm not social media focused, or I'm not into that. Sergio's not into that. Luis does it a bit, but Vince loves that. And so, when we talk about like image stuff, Vince is all about that. He loves the image. He loves the photo shoots, the music videos. He did a lot of the work to put up our music video for Iron Jungle. He does a lot of our social media, and he's really good at that. He knows what to do. Luis does a lot of our business stuff because Luis is used to that. When we do, of course, Mortalis is a business at, a lot of points. A lot of times it's music and a lot of times it's fun, but almost all the time it's business, and Luis knows how to do that stuff. When we come to do taxes or we have to do all this kind of stuff, he's great at that. At all of our shows, Sergio's the front man. He talks to so many people at every single show. As soon as we are off the stage, he is buying a drink with this guy, talking to this chick, doing this thing, talking to every single person there. Every kid and adult there is just, they want to get a piece of Sergio because they saw him as the front man. They saw him kicking ass. And then I've got a lot of music equipment. So I do a lot of writing. I do a lot of, yeah, that riff sucks, or this riff's cool, or let's slow it down, let's speed it up, let's do everything, So we all kind of have our realms that we're all really good at. And so we all kind of come up with our own first drafts of everything, and then we bring it together. And we all kind of vote on stuff all together. So we all have a hand in stuff, but we all separate it, and we all have our own like realms that we work in.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Now I know all these songs are like your babies or whatever, but do you have like a favorite track off this EP?
Oh, fucking Home Friend, dude. Like for me, 100%, like holy shit. It was one of those like, dude, when we were writing it and like playing it, it still didn't feel right. Like even from the drummer perspective, there's like that weird wonky intro beat and all that kind of stuff. But then when you like listen to it and it's like it all came together at the very end, I was like, holy shit, this is so good. So for me, that's my favorite personally. I'm like, damn, so fire, dude. Yes.
I think my favorite, damn, I mean, it's been kind of jumping back and forth. I know for long, I mean, Iron Jungle definitely for me was like a very, very like a stronghold of like, holy shit. I mean, because I remember telling way back when, since like finishing up the first album, just as far as like telling Austin, like, hey, like, you should pick up some like soloing and stuff, and like, hey, how cool would it be to pull a Judas Priest thing or whatever, we do back-to-back solos. Sure enough, Iron Jungle did just that, and it's like, I mean, it's like very braggy, but like I love when I show people. It's like, oh, I love this part. I love this. I'm gonna play first. Oh, look how Austin comes in with this, and oh, look, I'm gonna come in. This is me right now. And like stuff like that. It's a dope feeling. I mean, that song just fucking rips from start to finish. But I will say, having now finished everything and having been able to listen to everything, and in this completed form, my favorite one is gonna be Split. Just because I don't know, there's something about that vocally, instrumentally, start to finish. That one is like a holy grail for my ears, and like holy shit, this song is just all over the place in all the right ways. As in, it touches this for me, it touches that for me. It's through and through. I can't wait for it to like be unveiled for the people to listen to officially. It's I mean, that is to me my favorite Split.
Yeah, it's definitely tough because every track's got something in it that we wrote or I come up with that we were like, okay, this is going to be different. You know, it's like Prophet's got a lot of little melodic bits in it, and it's got that breakdown in the middle that every time we're playing it at practice, we all start bobbing to because it's got a good groove to it. It just feels natural to do. So I love that part of that. And then Iron Jungle's got so much back and forth, whether it's in the verses with Sergio singing and then me doing solos, or it's at the end when he's doing solos and I'm doing solos back to back. It's that one's got, you know, we don't normally do tracks that have tons of solos. We normally do stuff that's got one, maybe two, but this one's got, you know, I've got like 7. Sergio's got another 2 on top. We have like 9 or 10 solos in that are all short and self-contained, but it's just all over the place. And so that's really cool. And then Split has got some of the best vocal work that I love on that because we added in a lot of that was our big time like messing with like harmonies and stuff. We really wanted to add a lot of vocal layers to that. So there's some harmonies and bits, there's doubled bits, there's Sergio down an octave, there's like, and then you know there's that big rant at the end there, but it even has our engineer screaming into the mic for it. And so we've got a lot of parts on that I love. And so vocally that one's really close, but man, Homefront, I love. For one, it's just frantic. It feels crazy. The vocals are interesting because it bounces back from Sergio and I, you know. And then I love the solo that I've got on it. I was really happy with how that came out. And then just the way that the song came about, because I was playing when I first wrote that riff, that really frantic riff. I was playing some Blue Oyster Cult really slow. I don't know if you know it, but you know there's that Blue Oyster Cult song Godzilla that Fu Manchu covered, and they did like a sludgy kind of doom cover of that. And I was like, oh, this is cool. But Blue Oyster Cult, I love the Cities on Flames with rock and roll. I love that track. So I was playing that really slow. And then I kind of came up with Homefront, but it was just really slow and really kind of funky. Like it was like probably half the speed that it was at now. And I was like, okay, well, how can I get this and make it thrashy? Well, let me just speed it up. And it turned into what it is. And that's why it's got that kind of funky, like, drum beat that kind of like double steps on itself all over the place. And I really love the story of how that came about. Like that one, like I just remember writing that and thinking, wow, that came out in a really weird way. So I really love it for that, honestly. Like it just
I wrote it and it was great.
I wrote it. I just like that, you know, it came out from something really slow and funky and then got turned into thrash, and that's what makes it unique, you know?
It's cool.
Yeah, there's so much uniqueness throughout the entire EP. It was so awesome talking to you guys. I just want to give you the floor right now to plug whatever in terms of gigs, singles coming out. So the floor is yours.
Oh, 100%. All right. So we got like what, 4 shows going out back over in the LA area? 5 shows. Yeah.
5 shows coming out.
So we got one back over at the lot in City Terrace that's coming up next Friday. Then from there, we got we're playing one of our favorite venues in LA called The Smell. I think it's back over on the 28th.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's like a super cool little downtown area. Super great. From there, we got another 2. We're playing in July. We're playing 3.
We have a run of shows in July. We got the 5th, 6th, and 7th all back to back. So
yeah. So you can check all our posters and stuff. So that's kind of like the media thing. So you can always just go back over into our Instagram page, Mortalis Official, for pretty much like the entire 9 yards. If you're looking to pre-save profit right now, in case this episode does get released in time, you can definitely go back over to links in our bios as well, or mortalisofficial.com. That pretty much has like the entire 9 yards for like all the flyers, all the things that you would want. But yeah, that's pretty much the full 9 yards there. Also a special shout out to Ultimate Sound Studios, Charlie, for helping like bring this thing to life. Noah Mayhoff, who obviously we talked in pretty good in depth here today, fantastic artist, has helped us a whole bunch. And so yeah, like all our other friends back over into the scene, and of course, Disturbing the Priest here for being such a cool host, cool ass dude. Hell yeah! So that's cool.
Well, I
shit for sure.
appreciate the shit out of it, and I'm honored to be joined by some 3 cool ass dudes as well. Luis, Sergio, and Austin, thank you so much for joining me, man. Really, really appreciate it.
Yeah. No, we don't talk about the bass. The bass isn't even here, right? We just muted him right now.
Post edit will like Photoshop him or something.
Well, I'm Brandon Battick, and this is Disturbing the Priest.